Hey friends, it's Missy again. Thanks so much for stopping by today. I'm here with a new layout for the Summer Scrappin series hosted by my very good friend Audrey Yeager, and I'm day 19 of 21 days of Scrappin. And I've done this for 3 years in a row, and this is the layout that I made 2 years ago, and you can kind of see what I tried to do here was recreate the shape and the colors of my daughter's swimsuit. And so I took inspiration from that, and this is the layout that I made last year. And again, I tried to recreate the blue and the green stripes and the big white hibiscus flowers on the swimsuit again. And so I looked back at both of these layouts and thought, let's do that again. And so that's what I'm going to do for this year. And I'm going to start with some white cardstock, which I love to do. And I have two pictures today. Now, these pictures make me want to cry because they are of both my girls at age 4 wearing the same swimsuit. And I think I found that swimsuit at a Bell's outlet on clearance, and it fit my older daughter, and I had to save it for my younger daughter, and now they've both outgrown it, and I'm still going to keep it because I just think it's so cute. And so I had to print out one picture of each of them wearing it, and a little stroll down memory lane because now they are almost 13 and 10. And yeah, they were just little babies in these pictures. All right, so here's what I'm doing. I'm going to start with my white cardstock, and I'm going to coat basically the right side of it, or the right half of it, with clear gesso, because I'm going to basically try to recreate that second layout that you saw. I'm going to use my Distress Oxides again, and I pulled out a rainbow variety, and I'm going to basically try to recreate those rainbow shapes in the swimsuit in the exact same order, as close as I can get with the colors that I have. So all I'm doing is lightly scraping the Distress Oxide pad across the paper, kind of overlapping one color onto the next. I'm telling you, this is the easiest technique to do. If you have the Distress Oxides and you like to do mixed media, watch what happens here. Scrape it, spray some water on it, and it's magic. It just does itself. I am obsessed with these Distress Oxides, and the finish when they dry, they're like this really beautiful, soft, chalky finish. I don't even know how to describe it, but all I'm doing now is using my very well used and stained and loved little acrylic stamping block to kind of pull and scrape the water and the color down. And look at that, it's like instant background. That took no time at all. I love this technique. I've done it many times, and it's just so much fun. Very easy to do. Looks complicated, but it really isn't. So I'm going to go back over the lighter pink at the top and then the green color. And I was kind of nervous about putting the pink and the green together because, you know, when you mix those two colors together, it's not a pretty color, but it actually worked out here because I was able to dab up some of the parts that didn't blend well. And again, that's because of the gesso. If you really want to do this technique and make it easy, gesso is the way to go first, because the gesso is going to prep the paper and it's going to create a barrier between the paint and the water and the paper. And so it's going to allow everything to kind of run and blend and smudge and bleed together without just drying and soaking through the paper. All right, so my background is done. Now, these are some vellum cut files. Actually, it's one cut file. I just cut it 3 times on vellum. This cut file is from, it's a Hip Kit Club exclusive from last summer. I think it was one that Kim Watson designed. So it may still be available. I don't know, but it was from last year and it was a freebie. And then I got this stencil. This is the same stencil that I used on my layout last year. And I got this probably last year at Michael's. And it was not in the scrapbook section. It was in the same aisle with all the Martha Stewart paints. There's a ton of stencils on that aisle. And it may still be there. I have no idea. But I had to have those big hibiscus flowers because they just scream tropical summer layouts to me. And so all I'm doing is taking my little ink foam blending tool there that I use for Distress Oxides and the Distress inks, and I'm just dabbing it into some white acrylic paint and then kind of smudging it and dabbing it down over the stencil to create some kind of ghost looking flowers. And this is the same technique I did on the second layout that I showed you. I just basically recreated it again. And this is my quick fix to rinsing out my foam so I don't have to run to the sink. I just sprayed it with water and kind of smudged it on my paper towel there. And I do go and clean that later, but who has time for cleaning when you're on a roll, right? I didn't want to stop. So I did pull out a couple of shimmers that I always keep right there on my desk. I use these colors all the time just to add a little bit of splatter here. I honestly didn't feel like going through each of those Distress Oxide colors and watering them down to spray them. That was just going to take too much time, and I didn't feel like doing that. So I just pulled out some coordinating colors of shimmers, and I didn't want to go too splatter happy here, just a little bit to add some interest and just a little bit of something something. And yeah, I think I'm going to layer the vellum flower clusters on the background. Last year I cut some hibiscus flowers and layered them, and I love the subtle yet effective look of vellum because you can still see it, but it's still very subtle and light. It's just a different option to do, you know, when you want to add something to your background, but you don't want it to be too much color, too much pattern. Vellum is awesome. I don't think I've used vellum in a while, especially with a cut file. It's been a while, so I really like how this looks. So I added some white tissue paper behind my photos because I'm not going to use any pattern paper at all on this layout. So I wanted something kind of behind the photos there, and I do add some adhesive foam behind them to pop them up off the page. And I'm going to stagger my photos basically like that. And if you notice the photos, the one in the top, my older daughter, there's more of our patio deck showing, or the deck around the pool, and I'm going to use the edge of the bottom photo to kind of cover that white area up so it's not as, it doesn't stand out as much. Okay, so for embellishments, I went through all of my summer stuff, and I love this collection. It's from Simple Stories. I think it's from 2016, and it's called There You Are, Here We Go. I cannot remember, but it was one of my favorite summer travel collections from them. And I also fussy cut a little sunshine from one of the brand new papers from Paige Evans' Truly Grateful collection. And it's the perfect yellow to match. I pulled out some of the chipboard frames from the Simple Stories collection, and they're kind of like perfect for this, because if you look at that little blue one that I just added to the left of the photo, it's like light blue and then a little bit of a darker blue, and then the pink one and the orange one, again, it blends perfectly. So I'm just going to layer those under the photo for just because they match, for the simple reason of because they match. You saw me fussy cut some flowers from one of the little 4x6 cards. I also fussy cut some flowers from a 12x12 paper, all from that Simple Stories collection. And I'm adding in some thread. I'm going to add in some blue. I couldn't get that just right. Some blue and some yellow. And I'm going to try to keep it tone on tone. I do my best to try to keep, like I put a pink flower up at the top, the yellow sun kind of right where the yellow area is, an orange flower on the orange section, and then I cut some leaves for the green section. So it's just kind of small little embellishments. I'm not going to go too crazy on the right side of this layout because I feel like the background and the flowers and the vellum, you know, are enough. And I want that to show. I don't want to cover up any more of that than I have to. So yeah, I really, really love how this page turned out. And I love starting with white cardstock. I know I always get a lot of comments with people saying, I love when you used something besides white. And I do love using colored cardstock and patterned paper, but I really do love using white because I do love starting with just a white slate and adding all the mixed media to it. It really just makes the true colors of what I'm using stand out. And so this was just kind of right up my alley, and I was super excited to make this. Okay, so again, I'm still working with all the goodies from that Simple Stories collection. Look at that striped paper. It matched perfectly, and it went pretty much almost in the same exact color that I've got going here on the background. So I had to use a strip of that little washi tape, and I stuck it right there on the side, and I'm going to make it work just because it matches. Now, I did want to add another pink flower that I fussy cut from patterned paper down here at the bottom, but I wanted to make it more of that darker, deeper pink. So when in doubt, just color it. So I'm going to use the deeper pink Distress Oxide. I think that's Seedless Preserves. The label on that looks purple, but it is the most gorgeous deep pink ever. That is my favorite color of the Distress Oxides, I think. So I just added a little bit of it to that flower, and now it matches the bottom section. So, you know, don't be afraid to add some paint to something that's already colored. If you want to make it a little bit darker, just add a little bit of paint, or, you know, a gelato, whatever you have. You know, you don't have to use things as they are. You can alter them, you can cut them, you can change the color. When all else fails, just color it and make it the color you want. I'm going to fussy cut another little flower, or not flower, leaf sprig there, because I'm going to try to create a little cluster over to the left here. And I'm trying to pull all those colors kind of together in a little cluster. So I'm going to add some pink thread, and I didn't have the exact pink that I wanted, so I basically pulled a big strand of light pink and then a big strand of the darker pink and blended it together, and it worked perfectly. So I'm going to layer that over to the left, and then do a little bit more fussy cutting with some of these little hibiscus flowers and some other shaped flowers that I have no idea what they're called. But yeah, so I wanted something green, something yellow, something orange, something blue, just to create over here. And you can still see that really pretty vellum leaves and flowers. I love that. I need to get another pack of vellum. I think this was my last piece of vellum. And I did run that through my Cameo. I put it on, I think, a 1. So the blade was, you know, cut it very, very nicely because of that. All right, so I went back to some of my stash. Well, I wouldn't consider it stash. It's still pretty new. Goodies from the Truly Grateful collection. And I really wanted to use this Sunshine epoxy sticker, but it was really big and long. So I just cut it up, and I'm going to kind of stack it because I couldn't, you know, I wanted it to fit. So this was a good word to cut in half and still work. And I love the way the top of the H, I'm going to pull a Jen Scow here, nestles into the little curvy spot of the N. Yay for Jen Scow and her nestling. Now, these are also from Paige Evans. These are from a couple of collections ago, either Whimsical or Pick Me Up, maybe. They're the little, very tiny foam white alphas, and I wanted my title to be Sunshine and Rainbows, but I didn't want to use just plain white. So here is another example of changing the color of something. So I pulled out the Distress Oxides again, just dipped my finger onto it, not dipped, but, you know, tapped my finger, got a little bit of ink on it, and then I'm just going to smudge the bottom half of each of these letters in rainbow variety, because, you know, it says rainbows, why not? And yeah, I'm going to stick those down under Sunshine, and thank goodness there was an ampersand on that. I'm going to leave that white, but now my rainbows word is colored up, and I'm going to add that under Sunshine. I never want to run out of these little white foam thickers because they are perfect. I love them. You could leave them white. You can they're so easy to color. They stick really well. All right, so I did trim off the vellum that was hanging off the outside of the layout, and I got a little hibiscus flower over from the left cluster, so I'm just gonna stick it over here on the right because I had it there, didn't want to throw it away. And then make sure everything is glued down. Even though these things have sticky on the back, I've said this a million times, and if you use gesso, you probably know things hardly ever stick to gesso, so always make sure you add some glue. I do want to add a little bit more thread, again, kind of a tone on tone, so it's very subtle. It just adds texture. Some pink down underneath the bottom photo, and then kind of a minty, light bluish color up here on the top. These are the enamel dots from the Simple Stories collection, and again, the colors match perfectly, so I'm just going to scatter some of those around, and they're going to add the perfect little pops of color. They look kind of like splatters, except they're dimensional. And then I'm almost done here. I am going to add some journaling, so I use my T-square ruler there, and I get asked about that a lot. I found that years ago at joanne.com online, and I think it was like $3. The best $3 ever. I love that thing. And then I wrote my journaling in gold pen, and then the last thing I'm going to do is add some gold splatters. And then I do go back and stamp the date underneath my journaling. I stamped 2 dates. I stamped the date that each picture was taken. So one was 2011 and one was 2013. That's the final layout. I love how this turned out. I love every single piece of it. It was so much fun to make, and I hope that you guys are inspired by this. I hope that it gives you some ideas to be inspired by your photos. You know, if you have a photo with someone in a specific shirt or a specific swimsuit or something like this, try to get creative and recreate the shape or the colors on the background. It just sort of helps your design come together. It gives you ideas to pull from, and I really enjoyed this. I've loved all the layouts that I've made doing Audrey's channel, so I want to give her a big shout out for inviting me to do this again. I hope she lets me come back next year, because I had a blast doing this. So thank you for having me, Audrey. Thank you guys so much for watching, and let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you soon in my next video. Thank you so much, and have a great weekend.